What's up, everybody? Today's video is going to be a top 10 war offense video. This has been a highly requested one ever since we did the top 10 war defense video. This should help you with the new nowhere structure to tackle on bigger alliances and get more gold from those season rewards. But we got to talk about some caveats. There are a couple teams that just belong on defense. We will address that. And sometimes you're going to use some of these teams as a burn attack if you're faced with a very heavy defense. We're going to talk about alternative options for that. But before we do that, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsors of today's video, Into the AM. I love their graphic tees. Let's go see what's going on with them. A huge shout out to today's sponsors, Into the AM. They are by far my favorite clothing company. The fit, the feel, the comfort, and of course the artwork. Nothing compares to them. By far my favorite product that these guys have is the graphic tees, and this is perfect timing because they have a huge sale for graphic tees from the 22nd to the 25th of June, up to 80% off plus an additional 10% if you use my code Dorky. I'm about to revamp my entire wardrobe. You should consider doing the same. Let's check out some of their new designs. The first thing that pops up, obviously, is that Kraken design. I got the old model. That looks like the new model. I got to check out this new patch update they have on my favorite t-shirt. If we scroll down, we'll see a lot of other great options. We got the American Bald Eagle with that American flag right before July 4th. That's obviously going to be a big seller. We need to get a beaver, right? We need to get a beaver with a Canadian flag for your brothers up north. Next, oh my god, just the artwork is phenomenal. Check out this boat breaking out of the bottle. I also have the one that came before this, the boat in the bottle. This feels like the next season to my favorite show. I'm super excited to keep updating my wardrobe with Into the AM. You should consider doing the same. Stay inspired, and let's get back to the video. So let's start this list by talking about the bottom four of the best offense teams, and we see a very impressive lineup right here. And this is kind of a crazy concept, especially I know you guys are looking at them. That Omega Red being part of the bottom four when we're talking about the best, and it's simply. It's unfortunate, but it seems like Weapon X gets hard countered by a pre-taunt. That's why they struggle against the new Heroes for Hire when people are throwing Absorbing Man or Red Guardian in there, or even Drax. And it's kind of a bummer, right? Because once he has to attack that pre-taunt, the Omega Red, he then gets ability blocked by Misty. And if the Heroes for Hire is built big enough, especially if they're all built very big, that Heroes for Hire team can run over your Weapon X, which is such a silly concept, but it's absolutely a thing that happens. Then we have the Tangled Web. Now, we also included Tangled Web in our top 10 war defensive team, and I'm going to say myself, I highly prefer this team on offense, and there's a reason for that, and that reason is that they destroy Young Avengers. Any kind of Young Avengers, whether it be Chavez, whether it be Doom, Miles, Pre-Taunt, whatever the case may be, it destroys them on a very high punch-up. Now, the Tangled Web team is not a full team. It's just a three-piece. And yes, you do want Nora on this team. He has a very important disrupt for the Miss Marvel. But the two people that I like to slot in with Tangled Web more than anything are some Masters of Evil characters, namely Titania and Moonstone. They fit in just perfectly, especially Titania, with her attacks being unavoidable. So if she gets blinded by the Kate, doesn't matter. This leads to huge punch-ups, and the most recent iteration of Young Avengers that we're seeing is with Doom, and that team does not care about Doom. So I really like that version of the team. And then we have the two on the side, Unlimited and Infinity Watch. Now, I would argue either of these teams is your number 10 team and the other one is your number 9 team. They both do very interesting things, and what I will say is they both also act as the best burn team against an Apocalypse Gamma, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later. But that team, it's harder to get a proper burn in on there, and these teams can then slot in, and then you need a different team to be your top 10, right? Because you need to be able to take away 10 enemy teams to help your alliance get those full clears. But I really like these teams in their cookie cutter specs. The Infinity Watch team, obviously, they all spawn with Safeguard, Immunity, Defense up. This puts them in a very interesting position where any kind of Emma team or Chavez team, if it's surrounded by new warriors, whatever, they don't care about the opening barrage of damage or the opening barrage of debuff. So Infinity Watch gets away with that. Unlimited, in the same sense, they can take it and the Dazzler just flips everything. So that's very cool too. And these four teams, guys, you're looking at taking out the bottom of the defensive end. And it's going to be a lot of overkill in that sense. So when I talk about the bottom end, I'm talking about taking out Young Avengers, Rebirth, Invaders, Marauders, Shadowlands. That type of team is who you're going to be aiming for here. And these teams, it's overkill. It's safe. And they don't really flex any better onto the offensive side anyway. When you think about like Weapon X on defense, it's very strong, but A-Force can come in and take it out. Tangled Web, very strong, but Death Seed can come take it out. Unless you start putting in crazy other members with them, whether that be Chavez, Dorm. If you start throwing those in, though, you're really weakening your top two defensive teams, which we're going to talk about how to counter them in a little bit. So yeah, these would be the bottom 4. I like them. We have right now the positioning in the ISO 8s that I like with the teams up there. As far as investing in these teams go, Tangled Web and Unlimited, I think you can take much higher. Take them to the moon. Obviously, you have to with Unlimited. Tangled Web, I think, is an amazing investment for Crucible. Infinity Watch and Weapon X, it's a little bit harder to invest in them. But if I was to be starting over right now, oddly enough, I would probably invest in Infinity Watch before I do Weapon X, simply because of their cross-mode usage, especially when we talk about Crucible, taxing efficiency or just taking out whatever may come. And again, with Weapon X having that very big blind spot against pre-taunting teams, Infinity Watch, I think, starts edging them out in the power creep department. Let's go talk about something a little bit controversial. That's going to be our number 6 and 5 spot. Now, these two were really, really hard to pin down, and we actually had to make a list of what they counter to get a better grasp on our actual feeling about it. And this is going to be Death Seed and A-Force. Undisputably, they're both better than the 4 teams we talked about previously in a war setting. So when we talked about what do these teams counter, well, they both counter Invaders, they both counter Rebirth, Mare, New Warriors, Young Avengers, though I would argue that Death Seed can struggle if Chavez is there and you get very bad targeting. Web Warriors, Bionic Avengers, Shadowlands, super easy, right? They both beat Death Seed, the mirror match. Death Seed is easy. But this is where A-Force starts edging Death Seed out. A-Force 100% can beat Heroes for Hire, 100% can beat Unlimited, Death Seed can, and 100% beats Weapon X. You just use Namor. As opposed, I have Falcon here. There's a bunch of different people you can put with A-Force, right? Because it's an incomplete team. You can do Kestrel, Doom for safety, Surfer, though I don't like that too much. Namor is probably the better option there. Falcon, there's lots of options as that 5th that I think helps them take on different teams. As far as can beats, Death Seed can beat Weapon X, but if your Magneto gets ability blocked by the Omega Red, you're done. Can beat Unlimited, but you're kind of fighting at even powers there, so it's a little awkward there as well. And then we have A-Force can beat Hero Asgard. I myself have not had issues with that fight until the recent Nowhere changes, where Captain Marvel got a little bit of a nerf on the military side there. But yeah, so I don't want to say that they are guaranteed to beat Hero Asgard, but they can. And then doesn't beat. Death Seed does not beat Heroes for Hire. They do not beat Hero Asgardians because they don't have trauma to stop the Valkyrie from doing her thing. Doesn't beat Gamma. It can beat Darkhold, but I put it in the doesn't beat category because if you're taking that matchup, you must be desperate. The resistance on the Darkhold is kind of sketchy to try and land that Magneto blind. Doesn't beat Black Order, doesn't beat Nowhere. As far as A-Force, doesn't beat Gamma, Darkhold, Black Order, or Nowhere, right? Those top 4 teams of war in both offensive defense. So I personally, objectively think A-Force is the better war team. However, Death Seed is the better team overall. You're forced to invest in them for Apocalypse. They're obviously better in Cosmic Crucible, and they're a raid team. So if somebody were to ask me, I only care about war. I only care about war. Right now, both teams are at level 90. Both teams are at gear tier 17. Both teams have even investment across the board, but they're level 90. Which team should I take to 95 first? If you only care about war, A-Force. But if you care about being better in all modes, it's Death Seed. So as far as who is number 6 and who is number 5 on this list, it's gonna depend on what you care about, okay? But objectively speaking, if only war, I do think A-Force takes the cake. They're gonna be your number 5 best war offensive team, and Death Seed will be your number 6. Let's go talk about the top 4. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because we have a very, very strict current meta on how to take out the top 3 war defense teams. And that leads us to our top 4 teams. We got War Dogs, Underworld, Nowhere, and Undying. Undying is just a 2-person team. We are going to be putting powerful weapons around them because their job in the war scene is very important. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's no Gamma on here. There's no Darkhold on here. Arguably, both of those teams would be the top 4 on war offense, but they're the top 2 on war defense. And in the new structure, you need to be getting defensive wins. So they cannot make this list. Otherwise, I'm basically incentivizing people to go full offense. You might one-shot everything, or you might mess up on the Gamma mirror matchup. And now you're at an efficiency deficit for your alliance, and that's not good. You always want to have at least some important weapons on the defensive side when you're trying to play, especially in the hyper competitive end. So when we talk about these 4 teams, I think it's important to show some examples, not the full fights themselves. But why does War Dogs make this list? Well, War Dogs can beat basically everything except for Apocalypse, Darkhold, and for Gamma. But most importantly, they take out your enemy Black Orders. This is like a 700k punch up, and the way it plays is pretty basic. As long as Nakia doesn't die off the bat, which she can in security if she gets tagged by the Apocalypse, or sorry, the Thanos, regardless of size, then you're pretty good. You know, you're going to steal all the buffs from Thanos with your Black Panther 1 million, and away you go. There's a couple different ways to do this fight. I know my friend Dead likes to go straight for Cull. I personally like to go straight for Corvus, in what you're seeing right now. I'm going straight for Thanos because he went into stealth. But regardless, once you get set up and your Nakia doesn't die off the bat, you can kind of get through it. Now, when you're building your War Dog team, ISO is going to be very important. The most important thing is to have Skirmisher on Okoye, and then a variety of strikers. Right now, I'm using Black Panther 1 million as a striker, Black Panther OG as a striker, and Nakia as a striker. Nakia as a raider, you can make an argument for that. I really liked her as a raider when I was doing I believe it was the Death Seed Scourge. And then there's Shuri. You can have her as a fortifier, so she's more likely to live. You could have her as a healer, so that her heal is better. The next thing to take into account is who is Nakia giving energy to. In the Black Order matchup, because I need my Nakia to survive, I kind of like throwing her in the corner. And when I do that, the most important person to get energy is the Okoye, so that she can ult turn 1 and do her rewind. If you're not doing these crazy punch-ups, you're not worried about her dying, you can also slide Nakia over 1 and make Okoye and Black Panther OG adjacent for double turn meter rewinds, or Okoye and Shuri adjacent so that you can get a heal off. I think that's very important. I really enjoy my War Dogs when I'm using them, and so they definitely had to make this list. And they have great use elsewhere, right? They're going to be great in Tower whenever we get that back. And they're really good in Crucible right now, and hopefully we're going to be done with these stupid room rules soon, and we'll be able to use our War Dogs on offense or on defense in a different sort of room to pull different teams. My point is they have a lot of value. The next team I want to talk about is going to be the Nowhere team. Right now, they're kind of in a weird spot. As you see on the screen right now, we're using them against Darkhold, Apocalypse, and with Chavez. If Darkhold doesn't have Apocalypse on that team, you just slide in Underworld and you win. If there's a Kestrel, you got to play a little differently, where you use Kingpin Ultimate instead of his special, but you do win. When there is an Apocalypse, it does seem like Nowhere is the go-to team. Kind of weird right there. Nowhere isn't quite good enough to securely beat Gamma all the time, but they can securely beat Darkhold. Now, Big Boy Apocalypse can change things, right? In what you're seeing right now, the Big Boy Apocalypse, he used his Falcon Punch on Nova, and Nova survived. He's not always going to pick Nova. He could pick Korg, he could pick Star-Lord, he could pick Thor, and he could pick the Corgi. But the way the match plays out, you're normally very healthy at this point, because Nova goes first, defense up on your team, safeguard on your team, so the Apocalypse ultimate doesn't hit super hard unless you've given him offense up. If you've tagged him and given him offense up, it hits a little bit harder. Maybe your team will be in jeopardy there. Otherwise, though, when he does his 60% damage and there's a little bit of extra damage on top of that, he's not always going to get a kill. And unless he somehow kills your Nova or somehow kills your Corgi, you're normally very safe in this matchup. So that's why Nowhere made this list. I don't think this is where Nowhere should top out at. I do think they should beat Gamma, and I'm pushing for that with some of the developers. We'll see if we can get movement there, but Nowhere definitely had to make this list for that reason. Now, as far as builds go, right up here. It's a little bit too much to get into right now, so that's my current positioning for Nowhere. And finally, the Undying team. Now, obviously, I have them paired with a lot of powerful people here. We got them with the Eternals, and we got them with Dorm. This is what we've been using against Gamma. So regardless of who's with the Gamma, whether it be Archangel, Apocalypse, whatever the case may be, once you do a proper burn, you send this team in. The reason we don't send in Tangled Web anymore is because, first of all, 2099, he's not landing anything with the Gamma team getting 200% resistance from Brawn. Same with the Weaver. She's not normally landing that stun. And then there's the charges. Now, the charges are great unless there's an Apocalypse there. And then everything is unavoidable from the enemy team, and your Tangled Web is essentially useless. So that's why we really like pairing our Eternals here. They get to do the flip on Brawn when he does his special, steals a bunch of buffs. Icarus comes and says, give me that. Icarus ultimate does get 500% extra focus, so it's likely to land. Obviously, Dorm is there for the reses. And that's how we've been getting through Gamma safely. We do a good burn. Now, when we're talking about there being an Apocalypse on the enemy team, your burn team is going to change. If it's just straight Gamma and there's no Archangels, no Deathpool, then you can use this team. This is a very efficient team. We're making use out of our Ultron. We're making use out of our Phoenix, and we don't need them big. They literally just, they respawn, extra lives, extra targets for the Gamma team to hit, and then you're good, right? But if there is an Apocalypse, then you're kind of sliding in your Unlimited with a pre-taunt so that Red Hulk isn't killing everybody or rewinding the rogue. That's the most important part. Or you can throw an Infinity Watch. Now, Infinity Watch, it can get a little sketchy, but because they spawn with the defense up and immunity, it's a little bit safer. If you do have to use your Unlimited or your Infinity Watch on this team, then there is a very cool power combo you can use for other things, and that is going to be your Quicksilver Doom. Now, I really like the Quicksilver Doom team, especially against Heroes Guardians. It's an instant win. All right, and I don't know who to give credit for. Somebody messages me before. I know Sexy Jegs was throwing this up in the Dorky Den Discord before, but this fight works phenomenally. You just want to make sure you basic the Sif to get all her buffs off, and then you special the Thor. That's going to remove charges from him. Spider-Man special is going to put defense down everywhere, and then it's the Doom Boom. And you're not going to have Thor killing all your bots because you did take away one of the charges when you used Quicksilver special on him. Now, we've missed a couple characters here. You know, you didn't see Kang on this list. We kind of threw Quicksilver in at the end. Dormammu was in at the end too. Do we need Dormammu for that anymore? I don't know. We didn't show Namor in action here, so there's a lot of plug and play characters we didn't highlight how great they are. And we will in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.